What's going on? Going to be a little bit of a change today. Let's calm you down. I normally stream my Revit tutorials on my Tuesday Design channel, but that is being difficult, as YouTube is known to do. So I'm just going to be gaming it on my gaming stream because it's basically just Sims. Revit is basically just Sims. But I'm going to be recreating this building that has been proposed to me as a decent core and shell building. But I'm going to be starting it from scratch to see sort of how we got there. Not going to be getting to the stairs and tags and such, but we can at least get a project started using this as a reference. Okay, well, first thing is starting a good template. So let's see, and these pop-ups don't pop up, so I'm going to have to use a different share source. Give me one moment. Let's try this one out. Oh gosh. Oh no. We can work past these technical difficulties though. Bear with me. We're going to have a couple things cropped out, but that's half the fun too. Don't want to crop out anything too important though. Okay. There we go. Now we can see pop-ups when I'm starting stuff. So this will be kind of a dry run, me just kind of figuring out how this building was thrown together. And then at the end, I'm going to be putting something more substantially professional. The camera's coming off and not going to be in my cow suit. This is not a costume. It's just really cold in the basement. So it's just a really warm sweater that my mom got me. All right, let's get going. So good, gotta start with a good template. This appears to be a commercial building. We're talking about tenants and such. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pick the commercial default that comes with Revit. And then we'll do naming. So I'll just leave it as project one for now and save. Just hope Revit doesn't crash. Revit doesn't usually ever crash. Sarcasm. So let's get going. There was a 2-story building, so I'm going to go ahead and pop into an elevation. And we've got some footings. We have level 1, we got roof. I'm just going to raise the roof up to 20. And I'm going to create another level 1 architecture tab and make a new level by doing the pick line, because then I can tell it to create a plan view for us. Offset that 10 feet. Oh, it'll assume level 2. And might be enough to get us going, because we're not going to have a basement. I could just leave the footings in for now. I don't know what the construction style for this building is going to be. And maybe let's throw in a parapet level. Again, not sure if this will have a parapet. I am just going to copy this up because I don't want it to make a level by default. And then we could just call that parapet. Have our exterior walls go to that. Okay, we got levels in. So now let's do grids. our original building had 6 vertical, 4 horizontal, 3 horizontal for the main building, and then the 4th is going to the columns in the front. It also looks like the columns have been designated to go on center line. So let's just go ahead and do that. They're all 23 apart from each other, except for in the center. So I'm going to start the grid tool. Draw that. Let's draw it up. I'm going to try and make it graphically, literally try and recreate itself like the other drawing, and then we could modify it as we need to. So that was 23 feet and then 25 in the center. So we'll copy this, 23 feet. And then I think another 23. And then we had our 25, 23, 23. Should be where we're at. Got to relabel those as well. Let's keep the alphabetical on top. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Very specific type of lazy. Now, when I copy them, they will count themselves up. So we have 23, 23, 25, 23, and 23. Yeah, we didn't skip any letters, right? Okay. And then again, let's get that grid going. Got our bubbles on the left side. Oh, actually the bubbles are on the top and bottom, so it actually doesn't matter where we've started our grids. So let's go over here, draw one out. And then we had 25 feet, 25 feet, and 10 feet. So 25, 25, and 10. Since we're in here, might as well just graphically update these as well. I am not going to go delete and rename these. So it'll just be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Looks pretty good. It's even fairly centered in the space. Could adjust that later if we want. It doesn't really matter if the building is completely dead center. Now we got our grids. Let's just go ahead and dimension them. That'll double check if we actually got them right. Clicking on all of them, and then Revit's weird little final click where you got to click in blank space. But graphically, we'll want to verify that we have the right dimensions, and we'll want to just keep them displayed because then they can look the same. All right. In the same scale, looking pretty good. So grids and levels, naming, and then we'd want to put in our location. We'll probably wait for the next video to do that because we're just verifying all the locations of everything. That, and I just don't have the address on me. But this is when I would want to do it. If you knew the address for your client, you go into the manage area, and then we have the global parameters. Oh, here. Position, coordinates, location. So we could say this is, let's just put it in Boulder for now. Boulder. Love when it does this with the menu. Very cool. Maybe I just say Colorado. There we go. There it is in Boulder, Colorado somewhere. And then if I had project information, I can go into my project information. There we go. And then I could type these things out. Again, this would be the next step I would do. I'd go into this next, but we're not worrying about the data right now. So that is pretty much enough to get us started for a project. So next thing we'll do is start putting in the core and shell. Probably got just, exterior brick on metal stud. We can pretty much just recreate that. And then it is centered, it looks like perfectly in the wall. And the grids will actually likely want to represent, I mean, you could line up with the centers of the columns, but it's likely going to either go to the face of the stud or the center line of the stud. Because this is a project that we're sort of establishing the rules of now ourselves here, we can instead just decide on our own. And I like to do exterior face of stud, but it's completely up to you. So let's do that now. Let's go into architecture, wall. Let's get our exterior walls, brick on metal stud. And then I am going to set my location line to be core face exterior. So while we're drawing along that grid, that's where it's drawn, is the exterior core face of the wall, the stud part of the wall. Height, we'll just have it go to parapet. If this building ends up not having a parapet, then we'll just get rid of the parapet. Level, and then just have it go up to roof. And we'll keep it chained. So referring back one more time, there is going to be a jog in here. We can worry about that later. I'll just cut that out kind of like a door or window, like we would treat that. But it goes all the way grid to grid, all the way down until it gets between C and D and 3 and 4. And that's when it does that jump down to get to grid 4. So once again, wall tool. Probably should have verified that once more. It will in the wall tool if you switch screens. Core exterior up to parapet. Good to go. So let's start up here. Revit likes to draw clockwise. So I'm just going to take it all the way up over to F, all the way down to 3, all the way over to D, down to 4, over to C, up to 3, over to A, and then let it close itself off. I'm also going to turn up the detail. Let's go ahead and I'm going to duplicate. This is just a reflex. I try stop and spell things out as I'm doing them. I like to always make a duplicate of every floor plan that I am going to be working in my scope of work. And I like to call it W. And then I intentionally don't capitalize or follow any graphic standards of the rest of the views so that it stands out as clearly a working, you can break this method, mess with this type level. So while I'm in this view, let us increase the detail level. And we can verify that the grids do indeed go to the exterior core or stud of our walls. I know that we had talked about probably doing metal studs. So let's go in here and make sure that we do have some metal studs. We have 6-inch metal studs. The advantage of us drawing with our core face to those grids is if we change our stud size, it's not going to affect the footprint of our building, exterior wise at least. The disadvantage of this, which would come from centerline anyway as well, is if you change the stud size, it will remove or add to square footage inside the building. So I like one thing to at least be consistent. The footprint of the building's consistent, and then if you have to adjust the studs, you know you're taken from your interior square foot, which could be good or bad depending on how far in the project you are. But these are all looking pretty good. A little bit high for air value. Probably want to increase these gypsum wall studs to 5/8, but again, I'm not going to put in work on information that we don't know based on assumptions and past projects, because every project can be a little bit different. Let's see who we've got. We've got our footprint going all the way to level 1, and then it is going up to the parapet level. And that gives us our footprint. Could probably do some, in going with the essence of core and shell, we could probably also put in some of these interior walls, the demising walls, demising partitions. We'll have to figure out where we're drawing that line. I assume it's pretty much any of these doors that could change commonly with tenants. So definitely this demising wall, and maybe the locations of the stairs could be nice. But I don't know if I'll end up including those in the final walkthrough video. But let's see how hard it is. That's what the whole point of this first part is. So let's start with the center wall. Actually, let's go back to columns. We should place columns. These are 24 by 24 inch columns. Nice thing about columns, sort of like we were treating the walls, if we place a column and decide that we want it to be a different shape, it's not going to be a big deal except for design consideration, because the column, we're going to be placing it based on its center. And so if we adjust the column size, it's just going to update. So let's stick with, I think I want to put in a structural column. And then when we're more sure about the column sizes, then we could put in the architectural column, the column that will actually look wrapped in the area. So I'm just going to pick the 1049 W column. When you start a structural column, it's going to want to default to depth. I want to set it to height up to roof level. It's going to start on level 1 because we're on level 1. And I'm going to, do I want to cheat and tell it to place a column at every grid? Well, it would do those, and those are right. Yeah, I think I'm going to. And I'll show you my thought process once I'm done creating it. At grids, I'm just going to select every grid in the floor plan, and I'm going to press check. That will place one at every intersection, including the ones we want and including the ones we don't. Those center ones might be in that location. Actually, those are good. We need those center ones. So the only ones we may end up removing would be these 4 outer ones out here. Hard to highlight them in here, but it's the 2 within here and the 2 over here might go away, but there also might be some structure up front that's going to require those. I say let's get rid of them now, though. Let's not make assumptions and then forget that they're there and then just have 2 columns existing. I'm also, while I'm thinking on columns, making some assumptions. I'm going to select all the columns. Oops. And I'm going to tell their base level to actually be top of footing. Because if that's where the columns are going, we do want them at least representing the way they very likely are going. That's not necessarily an assumption. All right, now I'm going to clean this up a little bit. Pull in these grids. Need to leave still enough room for some dimensioning, assuming this would be our dimension plan. Actually, cleaning up the floor 1 view too. Okay, so that gives us our columns. I think I might just go ahead and wrap the columns, which in Revit, that basically just means placing the architectural columns, which is the ones that are represented in our reference view. Yeah, I'm just going to place it. Let's make them look fairly nice. So column tool, architectural column, stick with that 24 by 24. And I'm going to go ahead and place one in the center of all of our other columns. It's kind of annoying that the architectural column doesn't have the place at columns tool. This would be the one time it'd actually be really nice. If I had done it in reverse and placed these, then I could have told the structural columns place, but it's just lots of different ways to do the same thing in Revit. It's good to sometimes learn multiple different ways to do things in Revit, because sometimes one of the tools will stop working as well, or just stop working the way you're expecting it to. Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah, when it comes to stuff like this, if I'm wondering if we should just do it, I'm just going to do it. So we got those placed. Let's go ahead and do a floor, and then we'll do our demising walls. I'm going to make an assumption. This is probably just going to be a slab on grade building. So I'm going to start our floor tool. I'm going to stick with the basic 4-inch concrete slab. The most drastic change we would see in that is probably just the size of the actual thickness of the floor. So, and if that changes, then we can just change the size of the floor that we have placed. We would just edit type, change it to a different size, and then we'd be good. So with that 4-inch concrete slab going, I'm just going to do pick walls, and I'm going to do extend into core, so that when I select the walls, it is going to the outer part of the studs. If this building was in like a parking lot or something like that, this would likely just end up becoming just one large concrete slab, depending on how you wanted to convey it inside of Revit. Got that set at level 1, and I'm going to do a check. Now give us our floor, just in case any floor hosted items come up during our preliminary developments here. Okay, now let's get to those demising walls. So going back in, I think I am just going to center line this partition between the spaces. Looks like suggested 6 and an 1/8 partition to our wall. We could do like a double gyp wall, double stud wall, soundproof acoustical. But again, advantage of this, if we center our walls, then when we change their size or their structure, then it will just stay centered. So wall tool, interior walls. Here's that 6 and an 1/8. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And let's just cut it all the way through. Let's have it go all the way from here, all the way through the building. That will make it cut through our columns, but since we have the architectural columns, they're smart enough to wrap themselves. So you see the wall technically is drawing through, but graphically it wouldn't display that. If we did not have our architectural wall there, the wall continues through structural walls. So that's one big advantage of the architectural walls. Structural walls export data so that you could do analytics for structure. Architectural walls are really good for merging it to actual walls and graphically showing it aesthetically correctly. Okay, and oh, you know what? Before we get too far, we got this jog back here. It looks like it's not quite the entry. With the fact that it has exterior access like that, my first reflex was a fire access room, especially being so close to the egress. But I don't believe we would have a fire access with the door entering in through the inside. So I believe this is just an alcove entry. We aren't given a dimension on that, so I would normally eyeball it. But if I am given a Revit file, I can, of course, come through here and dimension. Sits back about 4'6" from the exterior. Oh, excuse me. So let's go ahead and make that. That happens right on C, well, approximately. Let's turn up this detail. Let's see, C is going to the almost the interior of the face. This almost seems either like an arbitrary location, or when it was drawn, it was referencing something that the dimensions wasn't transferred to in this Revit file for us to reference. So I'm just going to just throw it in based on how I would with the information that we're providing with the grids and such. So we had the exterior walls go with their core face exterior lined up with the grids. I'm just going to keep that going on C. And then I'm going to make sure that the interior clear space based on the current location of our exterior finish is about 5 feet. So wall tool, get that exterior wall going again, brick on metal stud, core face exterior. And I'm going to draw it along C. And let's go 5 feet. because it was 4'6" inset, to be generous with it. And it was about 5 foot wide. I'm going to do 6 foot because I'm doing core face exterior, not finish face exterior. And then I'm going to go up. As with most things in Revit, none of this, other than maybe how this wall is on the grid, none of these are really in the right spot right now. And that's usually how I draw, is just place things in, dimension things out, move them as necessary. Trying to draw them in the exact right spot while you're drawing them is a nightmare to me and for myself. And I recommend taking advantage of Revit's ability to revise itself instantly as much as you can. I need to cut this wall out, so I'm going to go to modify and I'm going to split, and I'm just going to split it here and then trim it out. This isn't necessarily desirable. This could have also contributed as to the reason why the wall is moved either. Oh, no, it looks like that's kind of what's going on with this alcove. So actually, let's just leave that column doing that with these conditions. And then let's get that clear space. Now I am focusing on exterior finishes because this is what we're actually proposing to have as clear space. So let's have it inset 4'6", and then let's have that 5 foot clear on the interior. This is working view. Might as well just keep these dimensions up. That's the fun of the working view. Just make it messy. Make it fishy. Okay. So let's see if there's anything else going on in the exterior that's notable. Columns are just on the outside. Put in storefront and such. Maybe that's what we do. Yeah, I could keep either going on the inside or I could finish up the outside. I think I want to play with the outside a little bit more. So in the front, in our model that we were told to reference, we have front doors, and then we have the curtain wall door system. Since I have the time, I'm going to put in a little extra time. That was all conceptual information with just the easiest tools to throw together. I'm going to use all of our curtain wall tools at our disposal to get this condition. So I'm going to go to wall tool. Curtain wall is going to have no information input. It's just going to be one massive pane of glass that you have to split with your own curtain grids and mullions and doors and such. Exterior glazing is going to put a little bit of math in it. It's going to try and split up the curtain wall the way that you think it wants. But it is going to require you to place the mullions, which is great if you have a little bit of a custom job going on. I want to just have it propose storefront based on calculations of width and height and place mullions for us. And then as we further develop it, it will still be easy to customize. So I'm going to verify that this will in fact embed it inside of our model walls. And then I'm going to draw it from this column to this column. Now make it nice and neat, cutting it right at the columns, making that entire southern facade open, flush all the way back. Oh, our architectural columns are not tall enough. So we're going to select all those and tell those to go to the roof. There we go. Getting our parapet situation here. I'm thinking these exterior columns need to go to parapet too, because graphically, if they are going to jog out like that and create a pilaster looking view, we would probably want those to go up. Yeah, and I'm not going to make them go down because the architectural columns in Revit aren't actually carrying data. So we wouldn't need to graphically show brick going underground to take advantage of any of Revit's tools. So I'm going to select all in view, but I am going to deselect these interior ones because I want all the exterior ones to go up to the parapet level to get that nice graphic. But the interior ones, well before this upper area, we're not only going to be placing a floor for the second floor, but then the second floor is going to have its own ceiling. And so we are very unlikely going to see bottom of roof unless we see roof deck and second floor, to which we will need to go back and update those. But exterior, I'm pretty confident that those are going to need to go up to parapet, assuming we will be having a parapet. Okay. Now I think, yeah, we could put in maybe put in a door in here. And then we could do more curtain walls, but again, we're early in the design. We don't need to put in any more than what's been generally proposed to us. So we need to adjust these curtain grids. Oh, you are cutting into that column. I'm going to pull you back. You're going to ignore me. I'm going to try one more time. I believe you. Yep, I don't believe in you anymore. I'm going to make you not attach. I'm going to right click on the end and I'm going to say disallow join. I do that a lot with curtain walls because it does a good job of meeting an item as long as there's only one architectural or structural item in that area. But otherwise, it's going to have a hard time. Then maybe I actually do want to give it a little bit of inset here. We might actually want about a foot on the inside. And then we'll do the same on the other side. Side might be a little bit harder because when we tell it to go a foot away, it's probably going to mess up with our right side, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. 1 foot and 1 foot 4. Fantastic. Just do whatever you want. That's totally acceptable. Okay, I was able to just drag the end. That gives us 1 foot and 1 foot. Perfect. Okay. Now what size panes of glass do we have here? If these are like exactly 3 foot or 6 foot, I could just select these panels and just switch it. But we of course have about 4 feet. That is way too small for a double door and a little too big for a single door if we're wanting to make it accessible or not require tons of opening assisting equipment. So I'm going to need to move some of these. So do I want to just drag this curtain grid and mullion over this, basically this whole column of mullion. So I just want to drag it over to the right. So if we're looking back at this, this is a double door. If we want a double door system, then we for sure don't want this mullion grid. So I'm going to select this mullion, and then we'll go back to my train of thought that I lost temporarily. And I'm going to remove that segment. We definitely have a double door here. But this double door is now 7'8". Definitely not going to do that. So we got options here. I can either try and redistribute the width of the distance between all of these mullions, widen them out each a little bit, and then create kind of some asymmetry here. So why don't I just graphically do that? I'm talking about it. That's the whole point of this behind the scenes kind of video, is to reenact what I'm thinking. So I'm going to do that. So I can do this. Tell me how far it is from here. Can make this 6'4", and then redistribute these to where these are different sizes than the ones around the door. And then maybe I can do like this, make this uneven. And then that creates asymmetry to where these 3 panels are big and these 2 are small. I'm kind of liking this. This is some pretty good proportions. I'm seeing some like rules of thirds almost happening here. But the other thought I had, no, I don't want to save. Why would I want to save my work? I don't save my work. Please save your work. Or what I could do, I could keep that right side equally counted out. And then I can pull this grid over and add a curtain grid here. Chunk out that segment. And I could do more something like this. And then these remain undisturbed on the right, and then on the left, these are just opened up. But that doesn't solve this from being too wide. Oh, yes, that's because I would keep this in. That's right. And then just move this over. And then let's see, this is now 5'7". That's fairly close, but we would need to open this back up. Just a little. Come on. Come on. Go. So open that to where this becomes about 6 foot. Oof. Okay, this could kind of be cool. Make this the same size as these. No. No, I'm not liking that. No, I'm not liking this. So we're going to go back and we're going to do the other thing. So I was liking where that rule of thirds was almost trying to come through. Okay, but with a little bit more exactness now, which I'll probably go back into the floor plan for. And let's see. 8'1" and 13 256. Nice, very nice. 1 and 13 256. Let's start here. 1 and 13 256, because I just don't want to have gross fractions while I'm trying to figure things out. Okay, 8 feet. I think we should make it 6 foot. Let's just start at a standard 6 foot exterior door. So I need to pull this over, I believe, 2'2", because the mullions that come with 2.5 inches. The mullions that come with most templates are 2.5 inches wide, 1 1/4 by 1 1/4. So we will need to move this over. Would be 2 feet, but half of it would be 1 1/4. So it's going to be 1 foot 10.75, I think is the math. If not, I just get to scoot it again. So close. 1 1/4. How did I still somehow not get the... Oh, okay. So that's the width of the panel. I need to make sure it's not getting to the edge of this mullion. The width of this panel is 6 1 1/4. Okay. That's right. I didn't have to compensate the size of the mullion because it was telling me what the distance is from one side of the panel to the other side of the panel. So I did math just for fun. That was just for funsies. For those with are fans of people arbitrarily doing fractional math poorly, that is for you. Okay, now we got our 6 foot panel. Let's turn that into a door. I am skeptical that this template has started loading in. Oh, no, it did. Curtain, walls, storefront, double door. No way. I was skeptical, but they do default by load it. Flip that out. How's that looking? Pretty good. And then now we got to fix this mess. I think I'm just going to force equalize to equalize the distance, which is extremely likely going to make for some gross dimensions. But I think that'll be okay, because I'll just give it to someone else to fix. No, I'm just kidding. It's because I think I just graphically want to see them just equalize. And then when we know we like the design more, you're going to hear that a lot. I'm just not going to put a ton more time into a design that just hasn't been refined yet. So the fact that these are a nice 4'10", actually 4'10" 3/4 is not bad. But that is also to the center of the mullions. It's not like it's the glass size. The glass sizes are 4'8" 1/4. That's not too terribly bad. Some minor adjustments. We can get some pretty nominal sizings there. But we don't even know for sure if this is exactly how we want it to look. Let's also reduce this. Have you just go to roof, and then let's save for some plenum space in the second floor. So, well, what? Oh, no, ew, 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 ew. We're gonna go ahead and align the center of this door to drive. Let me guess, you are locked. I hope I don't have to explain out loud here why I'm having to have to fix this, because yeah, okay. Okay. So what's the heights of these panels? 3'8" 1/4. I don't think I need to bring down this a whole 3 foot, but if I only bring it down 2 foot, if I just make this 2 foot shorter, which is decent for plenum, doesn't leave for a lot of glass on the top. What are the heights of our panels? 7'8". Okay. I don't think we need doors that are 7'8" 1/4. I'm gonna guess we could probably get away with just a pretty standard 7-foot door here. I'm picturing a retail place that we're trying to just tenant finish, be able to flip vanilla core and shell, jewelry store, restaurant, just whatever. It doesn't have to have a monumental Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus lead into it. So we can actually bring everything down 8 1/4, which I will do. Select this horizontal and this horizontal and unpin them and move them down 8 1/4 inches. Leaves for a little bit more at the top. Make sure I did my math right. 7 foot tall. Okay, so this is another decision that we have to make. One, we have to figure out how much we want to bring down this curtain wall for our inside, which for a visual, let's just throw in a roof. I'm going to go to the roof level. Commercial roofs are typically very easy. We're just going to have it be insulation of metal deck, EPDM. I'm going to do pick wall, and I won't do extend into wall core because I'm going to have this be a roof that hangs off of the side of the interior wall. And I'm going to have it be a flat roof for now. Although there is no truly flat roof, typically, unless you have some way to shed that water. But for the design's sake right now, I'm just going to have it sit there. So this is what we've got going on. We've got the roof. Let's go ahead and join that roof to everything so that roof, join, multiple join. Great. Nope. Join roof to everything. Oh, we can see the line work a little bit easier where I'm talking. Like the multiple join, especially since it will only light up if you hover over something that you haven't joined to. So it's really nice to catch things you miss, like these little walls. Won't light up unless it can join to it. Well, it will light stuff up if it hasn't joined to it, even if they're not touching. And then Revit will yell at you and say they're not touching, so you can't join them. So, okay, let's go back to this front. So this is what we've got. Let's get some color going on. Let's do shaded. So this is where we've got our curtain wall. This is where we've got our roof. And if I just temporarily hide this back wall, This is how much space we have between the curtain wall and the roof on the inside. I think that's fairly generous. It is leaving a fairly big chunk of stuff in here. So I think I would rather this go up to the roof, and then if needed, we can create a cut in the roof and ceiling area. I wouldn't want to cut into the roof though. You only typically do that with ceilings. If you want the curtain wall to go up to or beyond the ceiling, you can jog in the ceiling, but we're not going to want to do that with the roof. So we don't want to go too close to the roof with this, especially not knowing how tall up it's going to be. I am also assuming 10 feet for the second floor too. So lots of assumptions that we're going to have to be able to move things around as we figure out the building. Hey, what's going on? Oh yeah. Okay. So we have a couple options. The curtain wall can go up a little more. That'll give us more window at the top or bottom. We can lower the curtain wall so that we just don't even have to worry about an upper clerestory. Or what I'm thinking I want to do, which is have this small windows, the small height windows, be just at the bottom instead of the top. Let's see how that looks. And the way that I'll do that is I'm actually just going to tell all the curtain wall or all the mullions on this curtain wall system to go up whatever height they need to in order for these to go where these are. And then that will make the bottom go up. It'll all make sense. If that doesn't make sense out loud, it'll make sense when I demonstrate it. So, how far up would I need to adjust those? So if I take these and I move them up 2'7" inside here, go to horizontal grid, and then no. Here, horizontal grid, offset. If I just offset it up 2'7", it makes that go up. Well, and then I could just add yeah, and then we could add in another horizontal one. Tell this to go back to glazing. Add in a mullion. Oh, doesn't even have a grid segment here. There we go. Yeah. I think this is getting pretty complicated for the storefront design. What I was going for was we could essentially get a grid down here, 2'7" up, 7 up. Yes. What? Get rid of you. Right here. And then this could go up here. And then are these now still, oh, they're 7'1". That's good enough. And then we can have this kind of situation. But the one thing that is driving, or two things that are driving our mullion locations is the right side of the door needs to be a certain distance away to where if this door is on the end of the curtain wall, it will be the 6 foot wide. And then this horizontal grid, because that's going to be the top of the door. So I say, just go back especially since we aren't fully done with our design, and just go back with mostly what it was proposing, but a little bit more functional. So I'm liking this. 7 foot tall. It's got that there. I think even for now, I might even just pull this down and just kind of equalize the upper area. Now, graphically, do I want to have this vertical mullion when that's above the door representing where that whole width would be? Again, I'm getting way lost in design that we don't need to be doing right now. But I didn't like how it looked, so I changed it. I kind of like this. It's starting to look like a tic-tac-toe board. Kind of losing our rule of thirds that I was really wanting to play with earlier. But this is good enough for now. This is good enough to have a curtain wall on the front that is representative, sort of how a system would be. Okay, so the last thing I think I'm going to do is the interior demising walls that we just didn't get to earlier. So let's look in here. Got our horizontal one, which will have corridor here, no corridor here. I don't have to worry about this corridor because I'm not going to be drawing these interior walls. I'm not going to get to the bathroom walls and the bathroom fixtures and the stairs, but I might get to the stair walls. I'm probably also not going to get to the server or electrical. Yeah, let's just do stair walls. This is a design choice based on the tenants that were there. I believe the mechanical and fire room are still being a little bit designed as well. So I could just throw in proposed walls, but for interest of time, I think I'm just going to get stair walls in. So this is a fireproofed hallway, or it better be, because there is no way to fully enclose this staircase. If we choose to in the future, we can, but we have some more 5-inch 2-hour partitions. I could work on the stair. Maybe, but I think I traditionally see concrete or CMU walls for our stairs. And I think the reason why I'm going to draw those instead is because those are going to be bigger. They're going to be wider. The CMU and concrete walls I would draw are likely going to be like 8 to 12 inches wide. And then if we choose through our design, and we're allowed to through our codes, allowed to go down to a 5-inch wall, then we've just gained more room. It's more room we'll have to redesign, but I still kind of want to go worst case scenario with this. So I am going to enclose the stair. It's like that's going up a little bit. So we're guessing, I guess we are assuming we're probably not going to be able to flush draw I guess I'm saving over my original file. Great. Yeah, I'll just re-download one later. I'm guessing we can't just take our CMU wall. Do we just have CMU out of the box? Let's just do 12-inch masonry. I know it's a generic wall, but I don't mind the 12-inch masonry. So I'm guessing we can't just, oops, wasn't even in the right one. 12-inch masonry. Guessing we can't just say finish face exterior and do one of these. This might not be enough room. Maybe it isn't. But following with the proposed design and being pessimistic that we are going to have to create more of a jog situation, I think I am just going to go ahead and do that. Have it go off of the, have it go off the curtain wall like that, and then back to here. And then that gives us more room in here for the egress stairs if we don't have enough space. And then if we find out that we can go flush, then again, we have gained the space back It's an easy fix. We can either delete these 3 walls and redraw it, probably even just pull this wall down and realign it, tell it to delete those extensions, and then fix that. But for now, we're going to just assume we're going to actually need a little extra space. And is that happening on the other side? The other side, the wall enclosing the stair is flush with its interior on the jog. And then, looks like that right wall is sort of arbitrary. Might kind of be referencing the location of this column. Let's just place something in. Get that masonry wall going again. And it was off of the right side of the jog and then down. Distance isn't going to be a big deal right now because we don't know the exact size we need. So just not even in the right spot for a second there. Let's go down off our jog here. Let's just do 5 feet and then we'll go over and then we're going to have it go up. It doesn't really matter where yet. Do I want the right side of this to go flush with that so that it looks clean for the tenant? Oops. Like this. And then when you're looking in here, that'll be flush with that column, the architectural column. Or it's going to align without moving this column. Or do I want it to be flush in the stairwell? Because then when I'm bringing the stairs around, there's not a weird jog in the way of our stuff. Like this proposed stair location is good, but we'd have to get really creative with the handrail when it's wrapping around to that point. I really want to do what's best for the tenants. But because the tenants we're already, especially if we get involved in designing for the tenant as well, we or the tenant is already going to have to get very creative with the way that they are going to have to deal with these columns. So I'm just going to say that we would need to just continue to be creative when you get to this point. And then when we bring the stairs around, as long as this is a long enough run of space, it's just going to be really clean and flush for the landings and the handrails and such that are going in the egress area. I feel like that's where we can get expensive if we're trying to meet code while also creating custom conditions and clearances and such. It's not a very big space though. Because the proposed stair, I guess we also could have looked at the heights in this building. So we got a second floor at 11.6 and a roof to 25.8. Maybe we assume this was intentionally picked. And that's to consider more just the length of stairs. I don't know if I'm even going to go back and update the levels on this until I'm sure about these things. But if the distance from the first floor to the second floor is an 11'6" change, and the distance from second floor to the roof is like 13 feet, that could be a decent run. But that's also assuming that there's stairs going to the roof. I'm saying that assuming word a lot. Need a thesaurus. Yeah, I think we're not going to change the heights, but we are going to consider that if we are actually drawing stairs in here, let's just have the stairs tool do its thing. We have stairs going from first to second floor, and we have the run height of 6 and this nonsense. 171 over 256. You are so close to half an inch, but that's fine. It does the math, not me. And then I'm going to have the depth just maintain at 11 inches because that, again, worst case scenario in terms of how much footprint we're going to have to leave for this stair. And I am going to not assume 3 foot wide. Oh, I might have to get coffee. Let's assume 4 feet. Let's assume, maybe we can assume 4'6". We got 2 stairwells though, so I don't think it should go up to that. Let's assume 4 foot wide. And then we're going to have it run right. I said I wasn't drawing the stairs. This is seeing what will happen with the stairs to see if the walls we drew are good. So you think it's annoying to have to draw stairs in Revit sometimes. Sometimes you'll find yourself drawing stairs simply for space planning and then just deleting them because you just didn't need them. You just need to see if the space was going to be big enough for the stairs. So let's go about 5 foot off. Well, let's give it 6 foot off. And then we'll come up. Give it about a 3 foot landing. And then, oops. Line that up. Yeah. I think that'll be, did I nail the landing location though? Oh, not as much as I thought. That's fair. Whatever. That's fine. I'm not mad. Let's just put these against here. Tell our handrails to offset in a little bit. Guess we can't do in here. Can you not inset the handrails? I guess that's only... Oh, I'm still making the stair. And I'm trying to edit the handrail. There we go. Offset from path. Let's do 4 inches. No, let's not. Let's do 3 inches. Nope. 2 inches? Creme, they are going to hear you snoring. I thought it was already inset 1 inch, and that looked like it wasn't enough. What's going on in here? Is this the stair structure? That's the structure being built against the wall. That's actually being built into the studs. That's not great. But the amount that we're going to have to bring this structure in and this structure in and this structure in is not going to interfere because we've got this much space to pull things in. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. This is, again, talking about it. Stop talking about it and just do the thing. There we go. Awesome. Wow. Oh, wow. He's so good at Revit. It's so fast. There we go. Yeah. See, even assuming we are mounting it to the wall and not drilling absolutely any structure in, that's going to give us easy 5'4" space here. If we want, we can redistribute the stairs into the side. That, even them out, get even more space. Wow, that's really satisfying that worked out. I don't know if I've had that happen in several years. So then, yeah, that'll give us that. So this stair is big enough. I'm not even going to propose this stair out because I'm fairly confident that this stair up here is going to work just fine. Because it's proposing, yeah, the entry is going to be here. So that gives us, if we big door it, and we give the door a generous 4 inches. Inches. Yay. Awesome. That gives us from the door to the face of the stairs just a hair short of 3 feet. So that'll be great. And then are we going to have... We're not going to have the stairwell enter exit out. This one technically has an exit out. Since this is a lobby, I'm guessing this is actually going to be more of like a monumental stair, something that will look a little nicer. And in the back, this is just going to be that just concrete base stair size. So it's actually going to be advantageous for us to have more room up here to create these front stairs, because we're probably going to have bigger treads and more ornamentation and such. Okay. I think that is all to get started. So now it is time for the official video. So let me drink some water and then I'm going to record that. But I'm just going to be tacking it onto the end of this because then you can get a quick summary of just how to do everything from scratch a little bit more precisely. So I will be right back. All right, this is where I am going to be showing the video on how to get our project going for the IBD floor plan that you're going to be using. So we're going to go ahead and start by picking a template that is most likely most like the one that you are going to need. Let me try that again. Hi. We're going to be starting a template that contains most of the files that you are most likely to be using inside of your project. That could be a template that may be given to you, or it could be a template that comes inside Revit. Let's just assume we're going to be starting one in Revit. So we're going to go to Models and New, and then we're going to go into Browse. And this is going to be a commercial project. If this is residential, I like residential. If it's commercial, I recommend commercial. Easy to remember. Let's go ahead and open one of those. And I'm going to essentially be starting to put together this building that you are all going to throw together. Oh, actually, that is my version of the building that I was playing with earlier. We're going to be... Whoa, we're not doing that. Hold on. It is opening the largest Revit model in the world that we do not want to look at. We are going to be putting together, here we go, this model, essentially. But we're not going to be doing any of these center items inside of here. We're just going to be getting in the grids, the levels, and the general footprint. So let's go ahead and get started. With our project started, the first thing you're going to want to do is save. I'm not going to worry about that because that's a whole file management thing that you will need to get into, but you will go to File, Save As, and then Project. And that will bring you your project that you need. And then just save it where you want. You'll just save as project. And I always recommend when you first get started in your building, I recommend three major things: your building information or the project information, the levels that you know exist in the project, even if you don't know the heights, and the grids if you have them, which is more common in commercial or in most new construction conditions. So let's do that in that order. For project information, we can go up to Manage, and then project information. This is where we could type in some things. You're probably going to get more information as you develop the project. So the data I'm going to tell you likely isn't fully accurate, but this is where you'd put it in. So project issue date, I could just put in today as the date and the date series that I like to use. Project status, let's just go ahead and say we are in SD. We're starting pretty early in the project, don't know where things are laying out. Client name, this is the IBD program I am developing this for you all, so we'll just go ahead and say the client is the IBD. And project address, for now, I am just going to put in the project address. I'm just going to put in Larimer County's Front Range Community College address. The address is the only one. You can't just start typing. You have to go over here to the drop-down box, and that's when we'll put in the 4616 South Shields Street, Fort Collins, Colorado, and I believe that is 80525 on the south side of Harmony still there. You'll only see the top line in here, but when you go to Sheets, it will have both lines in the area that is projecting that information. Project name, we're just going to call this a starting building until we get better names or establish a name. And then project number. I like to do the year and then a hyphen and then which project I've done. I believe I have now modeled about, well, in 2026, this will only be the second model that I'm really starting and working on for the IBD program. A lot of stuff we were working on late 2025. So we'll just do 002. And I don't like spaces. Let's get rid of those. So this is just where I'll do, this is what I'm going to put in for now. Of course, you can put in more of this information as you input it, but you will want to input those under your Manage tab project information when you get to that point. So we've got our project information with our project information input. If you do know where your building is, and this is going to be important for this class, you will need to go up to your locations area, which is a little planet with a waypoint symbol, kind of like you'd see in a type of maps application. If you select that, you can put in exact addresses. So I could put in 4616 Shields, Fort Collins, and it will find that exact address within a couple miles. Or I could have also just put in Fort Collins if I don't know exactly where I'm going, and then it'll generally put it in the area. You will want to get quite exact with it because on the lower end level of locating this, you will always want to generally locate every project you have at least to the city that you have, because then when you are doing photometric studies and solar studies and inputting the information or linking this into Forma, Forma likes to see these things, and the other location, the photometrics and everything like to see these items at the correct locations, because then you will see the sun and other weather environmental effects actually replicate what is going on in that area. So if I have a client in Seattle, Washington, and I want to show them what their house is going to look like today at 5 p.m., based on the model that we built, they would actually want to see that. But you're actually going to be going pretty in depth with Forma's placement and site evaluation and site analysis as you're getting further in the program. So the more accurate you can get, the better. So I am actually going to go for that 4616 South Shields. It's probably not going to put us in the exact right spot. You know, this is our Larimer campus if you've been here. But you know, maybe it's actually this building. And then when you get into Forma, you're going to find that you might have to rotate the building either in Revit or Forma to actually sit on the site correctly. So just be as accurate as you can. But for now, we're just going to put in that information. So project information's in and project location is set. Those are actually kind of the more challenging of them. The rest of them are either known and easy to input or proposed and easy to input. That is the levels and the grids. So I'm not even going to refer to this other building. I just know it's a 2-story building. So if I go into one of our elevations, we're going to have to always do that when we're setting up our levels. We can see that by default with this template, with changing nothing, it comes with a top of footing, bottom of footing, and it comes with a level 1 at 0, and then it comes in with a roof. We know that this has a second level, so we are going to take the roof and let's go ahead and raise it to 25 feet. And then I'm going to make a second level. I'm not just going to copy up level 1 because then it won't automatically offer to make a floor plan and ceiling plan and such for that level. So I'm going to go to the Architecture tab. I'm going to go to the Level tool. And then I'm going to do pick line and ensure that the line I pick and offset will make plan views, create plan views, ensure that is checked. If I go into plan view types, you'll see that it will make a ceiling plan, a floor plan, and a structural plan. I don't want a structural plan. I'm going to uncheck that. And then I'm going to click OK. And so now whatever line I pick on is going to make a level and the plans for it. I don't want to make a level directly on top of another level, of course. So we're going to want to offset it. And let's say that the second floor is 12 feet above the first level. When I click, it's going to make that level. It assumed level 2 because the last level that was established as a level was level 1. So it just copied. When it made a copy, it just assumed level 2. And then if these heights change, when these heights change, you're going to find when you get more information about the project, or if you get to update this project to reflect your needs more, likely the first case, you'll be given these numbers. And even if you've done some drawing and some establishing of items like core and shell, these items are going to drive your architecture, your building, and are likely just going to update them to make them look accurate and be modeled accurately. So this is probably just good enough for now. I did say a parapet. We may end up having a parapet, so I am going to do that. When you take a level, as I said, if you just copy it, it won't automatically make a floor and ceiling plan, and that's okay for the parapet, because the parapet is going to be a level that we want our walls and such to go up to reference, but we don't need to look at a floor plan of the parapet. We would see that represented quite well in just the roof plan. So I'm going to copy the roof up about 4 feet. And this one is not going to be level 3, so I will click on that name and rename it to parapet. Okay, we've got our levels. Now let's get in our grids. I'm going to go back to the first floor plan. And I am going to see that we are going to have 6 vertical grids and 4 horizontal grids. So let's start with the vertical ones. The vertical ones are 23 feet apart from each other, except for the center is 25. So I'm going to go back into our floor plan. I'm going to go to Architecture tab. I'm going to go to the Grid tool. And then I'm going to draw our grids. I'm going to go ahead and just draw one vertical one for now. And it's going to automatically name it as 1. We want the vertical ones to be alphabetical. So I'm going to change that 1 to an A, capital A. And then now when I go to make more grids, actually, I'll just copy it. When I copy or make more grids, it's going to count itself up. I don't know if it's called counting when you're going up lettering. And it is, my bad joke made me forget things, 23 and 25 feet. So I'm going to select that grid and I'm going to copy it over 23 and then 23 and then 25, 23 and 23. And then I'm going to turn on the grid bubbles on both sides. If you drew it from bottom to top, you would just have to select them and turn on the grid's bottoms indicators. And then we can do some horizontal ones now. So grid, draw horizontal. I think maybe if I turn this on and then copy it, maybe it'll be on both sides. But this one needs to be 1 at the top. And then copy it down. And these are 25, 25, and 10 feet apart from each other. If you didn't have these grids, or if you didn't have dimensions, you can still draw them out, propose based on the size of your building. I would just probably focus more on drawing out the building then at that point, and then going back and drawing grids, likely based on where the architecture of the building would be. In this case, we're being provided grids. Maybe we've already started talking with the structural engineer, so we are good. I'm going to clean up the space a little bit, select one of the grids, drag one of the endpoints, just work with less of the map here, you know. I'm going to keep a little room for dimensions when we want to add those in. Okay, so now we've got in our grids. I'm just going to go ahead and dimension them so that we could verify that they were placed correctly and so that we could just persistently keep them on the screen to make sure nothing happens to them. So I'm going to select all of the vertical grids after starting the dimension tool in the quick access toolbar. And then, as with Revit, it requires you to click one last time in blank space to actually place that item. And then do the same with the horizontal. Select 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then place with another click. All right, so now we have to decide what are the grids referencing. We know that they're definitely going to be referencing columns. We'll add those in next, but in terms of the building, we have to decide what part of the building it's referencing. Typically, since grids are structural elements, you're often going to see them reference structural parts of the building, not finished parts. So you may see people put the center of studs lined up with the core grids, or you're going to see the exterior face of the stud lined up with the grids. Well, I'm going to do exterior part of the grids, exterior part of the stud, because that's just what I see most commonly, and it's fairly easy to draw. So I'm going to go ahead and get the wall tool going. I'm going to pick an exterior wall. I'm just going to do the brick on metal stud. That is fairly common, especially against the other exteriors that are in here. And I'm going to ensure that while I'm drawing this wall, it is going up to the parapet level, which could have also been defined down here. And that when I'm drawing it, as I just mentioned with the grids, when I'm drawing the wall, I'm going to draw that the core exterior face, the outer face of the stud, is lined up with the grids as I'm drawing it. So with core face exterior selected, I can now draw the shape of my building, going from A1 over to F1, and then down to F4, and then over to D4, up to D3, left to C3, down to C4, over to A4, and then close it off at the beginning. That gives us our entryway here. Oh, actually, I have that backwards. I'll need to fix that. It actually goes from F1 down to F3, and then over to D3, down to D4, over to C4, up to D3, over to A3, and then up to A1. That gives us our entryway that is jogging out. And then in the back, there is a little jog here for the back exit or entry that starts around C1, goes down about 4'6", goes over about 5 feet, and then goes back up to meet the wall. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to get that wall tool going again. I'm going to start at C1. I'm going to go down about 5 feet because it jogs in 4'6" to the finish. So if I am drawing on the core, the stud, I want to compensate just a little extra distance. Go over the, let's say 6 feet, and then go up. If it seems like I'm just kind of guessworking numbers, I am. We don't have the exact numbers on every single number or on every single dimension. And if somebody gave you this and said, build this exact same thing, then I would still draw it the way that I did it, cut this out, and then dimension it to draw it out, because the amount of math that you'd have to do in order to draw things in the exact right spot while you're drawing it is just unnecessary when it's so easy to dimension and adjust things in Revit, especially early on in the design anyway. So I can demonstrate that as well. I'm going to go up to modify, and I'm going to split that wall because we need people to be able to access that door. I'm going to split it here. And then I'm going to use the trim extend to corner tool to create that alcove by clicking on the 2 parts of the wall I want to keep on both sides. Let's also increase our detail level and go up to fine or medium so that we can see the wall assembly. And then I'm going to pretty much leave it at this for this level of design. But as I mentioned, if you knew your exact dimensions and size of this back area, you're far enough in that concept, or you're trying to just meet certain codes, you can easily dimension those items and then adjust it as needed to meet those sizings. Next thing I'm going to add in is the columns. You'll see that there is a 2-foot wide rectangular architectural column placed at all these locations. We could also place structural columns. I'm just going to do the architectural columns for now because that is what is proposed in this part of the concept. So I'm going to go to Architecture tab. I'm going to go to the Column tool, and I'm going to ensure that I'm selecting Architectural Column. I'm going to tell this column that it needs to go from level 1, which it currently is doing right now, all the way up to the parapet level. And then I'm going to select the intersection of all of the different grids where these columns would exist, which are basically going to be everywhere except for the 4 locations on grid 4 that are outside of the building. The architectural column tool, you do have to copy or manually place each one. When we get around to the structural column tool, when we have our design more established, that's going to be a lot faster because we're going to be able to just tell it to place columns where other columns are or where grids are meeting. So those will be a little faster. Oh, I missed 2 down there. All right. So we got those in. Next, let's put in our curtain wall system in the front, keeping it very simple. We're going to go to the Wall tool. And in the Properties type selector, we're going to choose Storefront. And then we're going to draw a curtain wall that goes from level 1 up to roof level. And we're going to draw it on the stud of the exterior wall from one side to the other. Now, again, we knew exactly where this needed to be placed. You can use temporary or permanent dimensions to locate that curtain wall exactly where it's needing to go. But I'm not going to do a lot of heavy designing in this because we just aren't there yet. So I'm just going to leave that there. But we do need a double front door. So I'm going to go into an elevation. It's going to go into our south elevation, so we're facing that door. And if we wanted to get rid of all of these grids, we'd be good to just select them and delete them or remove the entire grid. But we don't want to delete this whole column of mullions. We actually want to get rid of just this one. So I'm going to select that one, unpin it, and delete it. That will still split the glass because there is still a curtain grid there. So please select that curtain grid and remove that segment by clicking Add Remove and then clicking back on the segment. You will then tab to select that panel of door. You might have to go around the edge or have your face selector select elements by face on, unpin it, and then tell that panel of glass, instead of being a panel of glass, to be a storefront double door. This should be loaded in the template that you load into, the commercial template. If for some reason it is not, you can go into Insert tab, Load Family, and then go under Doors. And then it will be one of these 2, depending on if you want the cased, or not cased, but framed door or a more seamless door. But mine did have that loaded in. So I can select it and tell it to be that door. And that's good enough for that design for now. we'll want to add more storefronts in on the rest of this building in the future. But the last thing that we're going to do that I'm going to demonstrate is going to be the demising walls on the interior. Now, we're not going to, as I said, get very heavy into designing all of this interior part, but I do want to do some of the demising walls that are splitting up the tenant spaces. So I say we draw in essentially these 4 walls. Uh, these walls in between these 2 tenants, I'm going to allow it to keep the 4 and 1/8 inch partition. We could instead do some masonry walls. I'm likely going to do that around the stairwells, but for now, just to separate out the tenants, this 6 1/8 2-hour wall is going to work great with its double gyp on both sides for more fire suppression. So I'm going to go to our floor plan. I'm going to go into architecture wall tool, and the wall that was being used is the interior 6 1/8 inch partition. Since we drew architectural walls, when we draw the wall's center line going all the way from one side of the building to the other, we're going to see that it will cut out the pieces of the walls that are going through the column. It is smart enough to know that although the wall is continuous, it is going to break up the wall, at least graphically in our plans and other views, to let people know what is going to be going on there. And then if we wanted, we could draw in another wall going from up here and down, which isn't going to be super lined up down here, which is okay for now. That could be something that we could define in our design in the future. But this should be enough to get you started with your core and shell. That's going to locate your project. That's going to output information about your project when you put this on sheets. That is going to set your levels, which you can now very easily establish. And then your grids, which is going to help you establish where your structural elements are. I'd say the only other thing that I want to do before we're done is to just put in a slab floor in here, because when we tell the floor to be a slab, if it changes size in terms of its thickness, we can just edit the type very easily. And if the floor changes in terms of its location, like based on the footprint of the building, the method that we're going to be using to draw that floor is actually going to allow it to adjust the floor shape when we move the walls. So I'm going to get the architecture tab, floor tool going. We're going to use just the 4-inch concrete. Again, if that changes, we just change its thickness and it'll update for us. And also, as I said, with the pick wall tool going, when we go around and pick our exterior walls, if we decide that these aren't supposed to be the locations of the exterior walls, that's why we are not using, I'm going to make sure to pick the wall, not the curtain wall. When we select pick wall, not just pick line, it is picking these walls. And that means if one of these walls change, it is going to update the floor for us. Maybe not other stuff, not everything, but at least the floor it would. So we can confidently put that in. And that's enough to get you started. I may have left a couple things out, but most of those items I demonstrated one way or another. We can, if you want to get a little further on your interior demising walls and such, that's why we just reviewed the wall tool and everything. But that is enough to get started. For those that were here and were watching while I was doing the background, I'm going to keep that live. But for those that are wanting a more concise video, I am going to be editing down the last third of the video where I just demonstrated this and make it a lot more concise, take out a lot of my rambling that I love doing, and then that will be available for you to be able to just build this from scratch. But thank you all, and let me know what you think